Welcome to Elizabeth Plants. I'm Elizabeth, and today we are checking out moss propagation, moss rehab, and my prop box. So I made this propagation box 6 to 9 months ago, and it was kind of a half-ass attempt, and it was kind of just thrown together, not well maintained, not planned out thoroughly. But this spring, it has flourished. So I am going to kind of pull out what's going well in here, what needs to be repotted into soil or whatever in here. And then we're also going to, I've also just tossed a bunch of stuff in here recently, not well, it needs to be reorganized. So I'm going to reorganize it, and then if I need to, I am prepared to make another one. If we get around to it, I also want to switch some of my rehab plants from soil to moss. So we'll see if we get around to that or if I have enough moss. But this box is just kind of a plastic storage container that's clear. It has a pink lid, so instead of using that pink lid, if you watched my most recent cat proofing video, you saw the plastic that I used. This is kind of the same concept that I put on top, except for I poked far fewer holes in this. And I've just used these alligator clips to just keep it pinned shut. So that's that. So I'm gonna pull out some of the stuff that I've shoved in here temporarily because that doesn't belong in here right now anyways, and then we will get a tour. Okay, so not everything that is in here is thriving, but a handful of things are, and some things I can't actually tell what they are. Some I can guess, but honestly I have no idea what's in here. So let's give you a close-up. This is a close-up of my box. Pretty much all of the leaves you see now, except this one and this one, are new. So we are going to just kind of pull everything out, see, because this moss is like 6 to 9 months old, so I might have to replace it. We shall see. So I'm just gonna pull stuff out and start showing it to you. All right, so let's take a look. I'm standing so I can get a better over the top view. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that isn't obviously growing. We've got this guy right here. Not a clue what it is. I see almost no roots. However, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Right here, there's some growth. And also, right here, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that, if it's even gonna, there's like a little tiny node of growth. So this guy will be placed back in to continue whatever it is he's doing because it's working. So I'm putting him in the back in pile. But it looked like he was just placed on top. Then over here, we see this guy. I believe my guess is that this is Melanochrysum, but I honestly do not know. It looks a little rotted up here at the top. Yeah, I might trim that off. But there's no roots on this. This one might be newer. It looks like maybe this root is trying to get through. So we're gonna keep trying with that one. Yeah, I don't know what this is, but it couldn't have been in there very long. Looks like it was a maybe last ditch. So I'm gonna try again with this one. Ooh, okay, so my assumption, this might be Tetrasperma. I'm not entirely sure, but that right there is a root that was just sitting on top of the moss. So we don't want to damage that root, and we do want to put him back in. And we have this, maybe another piece of Tetrasperma. It looks like I need to chop him up a little bit smaller and keep trying. And a lot of what's in here is, I believe, Tetrasperma. Yeah, we've got another one here. Again, I might need to retrim up the ends. Looks like he's kind of doing something funky. All right, that looks to be anything that's just sitting on top. So pretty much everything else in here that I can see is growing. So let's start over here. And I'm going to just kind of gently try and pull things out. If I look, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's a ton of roots on the bottom. So I might have to pull everything out to pull anything out. So this one wasn't in there too deep. We can tell that that wasn't attached. There's roots where the moss is, but this was definitely a wet stick that I just placed in there, and all of these leaves are brand new. I think this is a tetrasperma, but I'm not positive. This guy I'm going to put in a pot with moss instead of back in this container, or maybe a taller container, because I want him to further his root system a little bit more, but this container is too short. So I do have this other container that's taller. I'll probably put him and anybody like him in here with some moss. Okay, so we've got this one. It's got a teeny tiny root right here. So that guy can keep trying. So this is an original leaf, but look at that. There's a root and a new growth. I don't know if it's picking that up. There we go, a root and a new growth. So we're going to put this guy in that other container to keep trying. All right, I was able to pull this guy out really well. This is rotted, so we are going to trim this off right now on camera. We need to get rid of that ASAP because we do not want it to risk this teeny tiny leaf. My assumption is that this is an army syngonium, but it might not be. I don't even know if you're gonna be able to see that well. Here we go. But it's got all this root. So we're gonna let him keep trying in this original box. Now that guy was nice and tangled with this guy, which was a wet stick at some point. You can see all of this moss stuff is actually just covering up roots. We've got all of these little tiny leaves. So that's really cool that those kind of grew from the end as well. That's really neat. This must have been an end cutting, I'm not sure. That's really neat. So I want this guy to continue building his roots, but I think I want to give him a shot on his own in like a pot. Hoping this pot will be big enough, but I'm gonna put him in this for the moment. All right, we've got something kind of little right here. It looks like it's mostly rotted, but I wonder why it's still alive. And I'm not entirely sure what it is. It looks like maybe it was Micans, but it's a little rotty at this end where the roots used to be, and a little rotty at this end. So I'm going to trim it up and give it another shot. Oh yeah, this guy's got a nice hefty root system. All of this is root, or stuck to root. And I don't want to tug at it too much and make assumptions about what's connected to root and what's not. So I am going to do that a little bit more off camera and pot this guy up in soil or leca. Okay, so I pulled some of the moss off that guy just between shots there. This gives you a better idea of what the root system actually looks like. And we've got 3 leaves and 1 unfurling, so that's really cool. So we've got 2 right here that are pretty interwoven. Okay, so it turns out this guy just has a teeny tiny root system, but I have no idea what this is. Not a clue. It might be Florida ghost. I've never had a ghost this tiny, so I wouldn't know, but maybe it's a Florida ghost. So I'm going to put this guy back in to continue trying. And connected to him was this giant original leaf, which has grown a nice hefty root system. This is a thick root too, and started growing this little offshoot. So we are going to put him in his own pot to continue. Then over here we have this guy. All this appears to be root, but I'm going to see if I can get some of the moss off. All right, this appears to be mostly root or connected to root, so I'm going to leave it be. Doesn't appear to be anything hiding in there. So this is one that, now that I think of it, I think this is an original leaf. And these 3 are brand new. We've got a whole new branch coming up. So we are going to put this guy in his own pot. And that appears to be everything in here that I can tell. Now I'm going to pull all of this moss out, bake it. I need to look up a tutorial on how to do that so I can reuse it. And then until this moss is usable, I'm going to continue using other moss for the rest of today's excursions. So I'm gonna go dump this out and I will be right back. Okay, I'm leaving it down. You can't really see me high, so you can see this better. But what we have here is that empty container. This is my primary container. I'm gonna continue to use this because it's big. Unless, maybe because this doesn't have a clear lid, I'll swap it out with some of these other small ones. I'm gonna do that. Be right back. Okay, so I've got a total of 4 of these size containers to work with. These are taller and they have clear lids, so that will be nice. So what I've done is I've soaked this moss over here in water with Super Thrive in it. So I'm gonna be more intentional this time. And I am going to just start moving some of the moss. It hasn't soaked for a ton. I mean, I tried to soak it in like cool water versus like warm water. I will have these containers and anything else linked, by the way, down below. Now I don't want like a super thick layer of moss because I want the plants to be able to grow, like to have some height in the containers. So here's this container. I'm going to put plants in this container that I believe need more height. So like this guy from the previous box is going to go in here, and so I'm just gonna dig like a little space for him because he's already got some moss on his roots. We just want him to continue to thrive. Wrap his roots up. I don't want any roots to be like exposed if possible. So we are going to tuck him in the corner right here so that he can continue thriving. So there's that guy. So some of the plants that I pulled out of the other one that I didn't show you because they hadn't actually been in there for very long, I have right here, and we're going to tuck some of those in here. So one of those plants just happens to be my Gloriosum. This is what's left of my Gloriosum. If you watched a recent repotting video, I pulled the Gloriosum out of LECA, and that one leaf that was on the plant didn't last very long. So we have some roots here. I think I'm gonna trim some of these off. They're all dried up. They're just going to rot. So I'm going to trim these off and we are going to wrap in moss. Okay, so there's lots of nodes on it. So I'm going to just kind of tuck it, nestle it in the moss. I don't want it to be suffocated, but I do want it to be able to reach out of all of its nodes. Another plant I have here is Melanochrysum. This is just the tippy top, a leaf that was already unfurling that I trimmed off. I believe I talked about it in my latest cat proofing video / care video, but there's a ton, if you can even see, a ton of nodes around here. So I'm just gonna plop it in so that the nodes are surrounded by the moss. I believe I'm also going to put the Florida Ghost-esque plant in this one. I think it'll do well. So this is what it looks like so far. I've got room for one more plant. And I just discovered this guy, which has a little bit of a root growing right here. So he wasn't in that box very long, but he was already loving it. So I'm going to tuck him in this one. I'm going to make sure I cover up, or at least make sure it's touching moss where any of the nodes are, but I don't want to suffocate it. So that is this box. I'm going to put a lid on. And I'm going to go put it over on the ground where I keep my prop boxes. Let's do the next one. The moss I ordered this time is different. It's got like straw in it, which is fine, but it makes it challenging for me to squeeze the water out because it's like sticks. There we go. So now we've got this, and I'm going to put these two guys in there. Now I've got a particular idea for this one. So I have some of these guys to stick in moss. I think they're too tall, but I'm going to stick them in here just to kind of kickstart root growth. This guy was in the other container for maybe a couple of days, and I don't think you can see it, but the roots are already starting to break open. So I just want to get root growth started, and then I will transport it to a pot with moss. And I've got a couple of those guys, but I think this one's going to be way too tall. Yeah, this guy's way too tall, so I'm gonna have to trim him up even further and stick him in pots. So I'm actually going to trim him right there. And then I've got a plastic pot right here that I'm going to tuck them in. I've changed my mind. I'm gonna put him in this glass so that I can see the root system. I'd rather keep an eye to avoid rot. So that is this guy. All right, back to this container. I think we can fit a little bit more underneath this leaf right here. And we've got this giant guy. It's a long kind of trailer, I think from the same plant, but we are actually going to cut him up a little bit further between every node. And then tuck these guys in here. These are sticks, and since I freshly trimmed them, I'm just gonna kind of nuzzle them in on top so I can keep an eye on them with the nodes facing the moss. I believe this is a wet stick from that same plant, so I'm gonna just stick her in here too. I might be wrong, but that's okay. And now I'm going to put a lid on. Okay, now to kind of save you guys from my explanations, I've mostly just got a collection of like wet sticks. So I'm going to fill this guy with as many of those as I can fit, but I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just going to do it. All right, that's this guy again, mostly wet sticks, but I'm hoping there's plenty of space for them to flourish. Stick a lid on and call this a box. Still got some more wet sticks, so we're gonna continue. I know the sun's coming out and it's kind of getting in the way. Bear with me. I think that is everyone. All right, so this is editing me from the future. This video is way too long. I have no idea what I was thinking. It's so long. So I'm going to break it here. There's still more in this project. However, I'm going to save that for next week because it's another like 10 to 15 minute piece. And that's just too much. That's too much. So I'm pausing the video here, breaking it into 2 parts. I know, I'm so sorry. I do this so much. So stay tuned for next week when you get to check out the rest of this project. If you liked this part 1 of the video, subscribe, like, ring the bell, all the things, and I will see you next week.